if you elect me, I will do my best. I will write letters. I will go to the school board. I'll go to the city council to get central air conditioning installed in this school. And as soon as I said that, there was an audible gasp and cheers in the audience, and I won by a landslide.
As it becomes harder or more difficult for college graduates to find jobs, your best option, in my opinion, is go out there and start a job.
What I think is complete BS is that I'm so great at balancing.
What are you going to do to dazzle me?
Stop doing it.
Welcome to 2026.
Yes, sir.
Year 7. Let's do the counting correctly. 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, 26. That's how we get into year 7.
Wow. I'm just happy that I'm starting to figure out what day of the week it is.
Congratulations.
We're back to some sort of routine. We know that Thursdays are recording days for year 7 of the Fervent 4 show.
Yes. Okay, so today's guest, you and I have known for some period of time. I would say at least a decade for me, probably longer for you. And Do you recall when you met him for the first time?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Which was?
And the very first time that we met was at the inaugural Start Peninsula at CNU.
Okay.
I believe so.
Okay.
And is that right, Chris?
I was wondering if you were going to get that right, because I thought you might have said something else, and then I was going to come on and correct you. But no, the first time we ever met, you're exactly right, was at Start Peninsula 1 at CNU. It was the first time I met both of you, because I definitely distinctly remember meeting you guys there. So it's been, 13 years now, right? 12, 13?
Yeah, I think 14. Yeah, November would be 14. Yeah, that's wild.
During the situation where we met, it had to have been 2012. Yeah, I think it was like November or December of 2012, because we had done at least 1 or 2 Start Norfolks at that point. Were you at MC at that point, Chris?
No, I started emceeing Start Peninsula in year 3, the one at that was at William and Mary. Remember that?
The crazy thing, yeah.
Senator Warner and the rooster-shaped lollipops.
Yes. Well, shortly after we had met at CNU, that's when Chris became my daddy.
Yes, that is correct. And still to this day. So thanks for having me on finally.
7 years. But, normally I'm an inquisitive one, but in this case, I'm not going to, I don't want to know really. So I'm not going to ask for further questions. Okay. So you are one who I think people would say likes to be on stage, can be someone who is in a position where they like to lead or to guide people, as you've been from an MC perspective, from a Start Peninsula, and I'm sure other things as well. But when it comes to chamber events and other government affair situations, when it comes to public speaking, because at the core, that's what that is public speaking something that you naturally have just been accustomed to? Is that something that just came natural to you? Like, how did you getting on stage, being the person that hundreds and thousands of people are looking at, how did you get into that position?
I love that question because I love public speaking. It's been something that I've been doing pretty much my entire life. So I grew up in Newport News. My family had a small business for 65 years, actually, a dance studio. And so I was literally on stage in a spotlight, tap dancing at the age of about 2.5, I think was my first recital. And so I've just been kind of used to being on a stage and in a spotlight. So I ran for president of Hilton Elementary School, SCA, when I was in 4th grade against the most popular guy in school. And I was a new kid that year, so I got picked on just a little bit. And my teacher said, "Why don't you run for president of the SCA?" I said, "That sounds great." I was up against, a pretty big challenge there. I wasn't very popular, but he was. And so on the hot day that we gave our talks on stage in the auditorium, Hilton was built in 1918. It didn't have any air conditioning at the time, and sweat just pouring down people's faces. And I tossed my speech when I got on stage and I said, guys, if you elect me, I will do my best. I will write letters. I will go to the school board. I'll go to the city council to get central air conditioning installed in this school. And as soon as I said that, there was an audible gasp and cheers in the audience, and I won by a landslide. And by the way, I did follow through on that. They just got it 2 years after we all graduated from 5th grade. But anyway, so I guess I kind of tell that story to say that I've been public speaking for a long time, and I do really enjoy it. And actually, can I take that analogy about the spotlight and turn it on you guys for just a second? Because we have known each other for a long time, and it's an honor to be on the show with you guys. I've been watching since literally the first day that you guys ever did this. Not always live, but I usually try to catch up on them and watch. And what you guys have done collectively between the two of you and the people that you've brought into the fold and the people that you've brought together to really spur and augment the innovation ecosystem that we have here in Hampton Roads. I mean, I brag about it all the time. Anywhere I go, anywhere I might go and speak, anywhere I am outside of Hampton Roads, I'm talking about this very special entrepreneurship ecosystem that we have here. And you guys are like the grandfathers of it, you know, along with people like John Paris and some of the Willie Donaldson, some of the early ones that were really getting things formed here. And I think that you guys have really caused it to coalesce with everything that you've done, Zach, through Start Norfolk, Start Peninsula, Tim, with everything that you've done to consolidate a lot of the efforts under this Innovate Hampton Roads and Reactor, umbrella. So anyway, I had to put a little credit back to you guys and put the proverbial spotlight back on you. It's just really amazing to have had a front row seat to what you guys have been doing this entire time. So anyway, thank you for everything that you've done. It's really great to be a part of it.
Well, that is very kind of you, Chris. Yeah, and the thing, and I appreciate that, just in the sense of, you know, that we've been at this a really, really long time, and it's almost like below the crust of the earth, there's this magma that is flowing, and it just, the volcano is erupted, and we now see the lava that is coming out. But I mean, like, this has been going on underneath the surface for quite some time, and it's just now that we're actually we're seeing a lot more of the exposure and inbound phone calls and inquiries than we have in the past. But all this stuff was taking place for a long time. It just took a while for it to really show.
Well, and it's authentic and it's genuine and it's from the heart. And I remember, so getting back to Start Peninsula 1, I didn't know you at the time, Tim. I saw you, and I remember the first thing I thought was, that dude with the Christian Slater haircut, he looks pretty cool. And so I went up and I introduced myself to you. And then Zach, I'll never forget, you were running around like ball of energy. And at the time, Start Peninsula had a bit of a different model than it has now. It started off, as you know, as a 3-day weekend where you could come the first night and you could literally just pitch an idea that you just thought of 5 minutes earlier. And then you end up forming a team at the end. And then you go through an entire weekend with subject matter experts to help you flesh out your idea. And then you pitch again the top 10 finalists on the last day, right? So it had the 2 pitches and then the awards. So I remember that you, Zach, were trying to make a point about how simple it is to just come up with an idea and you can make it come to fruition right then and there. And I remember you grabbing one of the young ladies that was part of the catering team and asking her if she had an idea for a business. You brought her up on stage and put the microphone in front of her mouth, and she came up with something on the spot. And like, I don't know, are they a unicorn yet? Anyway, so that was a really cool thing. And I said to myself, I want to be a part of this. And that's why I got involved the next year teaching the accelerator at PTI. And then the third year was the emceeing. So, and I really enjoyed every minute of it. I kind of miss it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that was.
I don't recall that at all.
I do.
Right.
Were you being facetious, Zach?
I mean, that was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago, but I do remember that.
I don't remember things at like my own events from like.
Yeah, I cannot remember what she pitched, but I do remember that happening.
Yeah. But that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. That's the spark that I think was needed. And so.
I think, I mean, it's just one of those deals. I mean, we take this stuff serious, but at the same time, you can't take it too serious. And you just got to let things happen.
But everyone has ideas.
Right.
And so giving them a platform to be able to project that idea out to see if there's any interest whatsoever, I think gives you the next step in the equation to say, okay, maybe there is something here. And obviously Start Peninsula in what year?
However, year 14, yeah.
year 14. I mean, double the age of this show. I mean, crazy to think both of those stats, really. But yeah, I mean, ideas are cheap. You know, most people aren't willing to get on a stage and say something about them. And if they are willing to do that and they do get some sort of validation from that, to then see like if it has legs, I think is important.
I think what it demonstrated, if I can just tie a bow on this, is it removes the perceived barriers to entry that people might have. So yeah, everyone has ideas, but then people, they say, oh, I'm sure that's been thought of already, or I wouldn't even know where to begin with that. And so what you were illustrating by just simply doing that, even though it was kind of a, you know, it was a fun thing and maybe even somewhat tongue in cheek, although I don't think it was. I think it was completely serious, but it shows people that you can have the idea and you have access to folks who can help you make that become a reality. And that's the biggest thing that we need right now, is that messaging permeates not just the people who are kind of in the ecosystem or adjacent to it, but that everyone has. And I think that is something that has increased over time and something that you can really only build over time. But I'd really like to see it even more.
Yeah, it is wild. We to put a bow on your bow. We Star Peninsula. We had there was the first successful exit that just happened a few months ago with Occasion Genius. So they were acquired.
I remember giving him his first check, actually.
Yeah. So yeah, it's good stuff. It just takes such a long time. I mean, it takes a really, really long time. And I think that's been part of that's one of the biggest challenges, to educate those people that are not in this space, that especially Star Peninsula, when you're talking about idea validation, it is from the time of validation to the time of exit or raising any money or any significant milestone, it takes a long, long time. And we're starting.
Why do you think that is, though, Tim? Because it doesn't make sense to me, right? So you look at, let's just look at a very large company like Facebook / Meta, whatever they're called today. You look at them, they exited in what, 2010, 2011? That's a 6 or 7 year span before their exit. Sure, they, became a juggernaut and were a very big deal at that point, but the biggest companies in the world were not overnight successes. So why do you think the education on that aspect is such a difficult thing to sell, when it's clearly in front of people's faces that this is not something that is
yeah. Well, I think that locally here in Hampton Roads, a lot of this stuff is funded from local government. And so when it's funded by local government, they're operating on 1 year fiscal cycles. And you can't see the returns on those investments in a 1 year cycle. And so then we have to go back to those elected officials on a yearly basis to give updates on how everything is. And it just takes longer than a 1 year cycle, or however long of a term someone is elected in. So that is the part that we have to educate on, is that our cycles are longer than an election cycle.
Yeah, well, if you think of it like a funnel, right? You gotta have a wide top to the funnel. And I think that before, when we kind of all started this, and maybe even before us, the funnel looked more like this, maybe even skinnier. But what you guys have done is to widen the funnel to capture more ideas, to capture more people, to get the message out to a broader space. And so part of widening that funnel that I've observed, that I think has changed maybe even in just the past decade, is that we are seeing the rise of very successful university incubators and entrepreneurship centers. As I think I told you guys, I'm involved with the one at James Madison University, my alma mater, the Gilliam Center for Entrepreneurship. We've got an amazing one at ODU, Strom, and and they're popping up here and there. And so we're creating these little mini ecosystems when students are younger and understanding that they can go into business even while they're in college taking classes. And now, Tim, we're seeing it even younger than that in the high schools. And you and I have served together in York County School Division with their entrepreneurship program, mentoring and judging and pushing some of them along, and even feeding them into kind of our Start Peninsula pipeline, right? So I think that the more of these types of institutions we can become ingrained in, that causes the funnel to be wider. And of course, it's a numbers game. We already have the system built, and I think the system's working pretty well. We just need to get more people in it.
Well, and I think, this is might be a little spicy take, but as it becomes harder and more difficult for college graduates to find jobs because workforce is starting to shrink, your best option, in my opinion, is go out there and start a job, identify a problem that needs to be solved, and start a job. Because I mean, it is getting increasingly difficult, and I've seen it firsthand.
Isn't it funny how society kind of corrects itself that way? Did you see the stat that Gen Z is, I think it's between 18 to 24-year-olds, and this was by the Global Entrepreneurship Survey, I think that they do once a year. And in the US, 1 in 4 who are 18 to 24 are in some way in business for themselves. And of course, some of that may be 1099 people or maybe Uber drivers, but a lot of them are startup entrepreneurs or people that are starting small businesses on the side. I think that's incredible. And they're doing it out of necessity because it is such a tough job market. And obviously with the advances in AI, and I don't know if we're going to get into some of that, but that could stoke that flame just a little bit too. Again, out of necessity, but it's great to see.
And that's where,
yeah.
And that's where I'm going with that in terms of, but at the same time, I mean, like that's one side that you could be like, oh, it's doom and gloom. But on the other side, when you look at the history of MIT and what happened in the Cambridge area in Massachusetts, I mean, that turned into a juggernaut out of necessity as well, because the job market back then was very, very small. So that's how entrepreneurship started to bloom there. And then you look at what it became today, and that's just a huge, huge hub for entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
So yeah, totally.
Interesting thought on that, Tim. I got a text message from an old colleague a few nights ago about their kid who's trying to go to MIT, and they're like researching like what they're looking for. It's quite interesting. It's not your typical like be the first grade SCA leader president. When you can repair the AC by giving a rousing pitch, to the crowd. It's actually more like building something, being resourceful, having some sort of traction in your life towards the next step, figuring out that you can be more of a builder. And so it's interesting, you look at a school like an MIT and you go, yeah, sure, of course, that's the type of thing. But for it to be articulated down to like that, when, no offense to West Virginia University, but like it's where I went to school, Chris, probably the same for Jamie and for you, right? It's like, okay, it's not just about get a decent GPA. It's not just about, having, a nice little cover letter or whatever the thing that you have to send off to, the admission letter or whatever. It's about building something, them seeing that you can do something that dazzles you. And if you guys remember in my anomaly video, there was one of my favorite movies is 21. It's a movie about blackjack, and it's about this. Have you guys ever seen it? It's about how these students from their professor end up counting cards, and the guy who's the main character, student there, joins this, makes a lot of money, but he's going to the administration professor, the guy who's basically saying you can get into this other school. He wants to go to, I think, Harvard Med, something like that. And he goes, what are you going to do to dazzle me? And that's what I took out of this from this guy, the parent who wants his kid to go to MIT. It's like, what are you going to do to dazzle me? And I always thought that was really interesting, just that one line. And I think of that a lot from an anomaly perspective. It's like, well, what are you going to do to dazzle me? What's going to be the thing that gets your attention? What's that thing? Super Bowl's in 6 weeks, right? What's the thing that's going to dazzle me for me to recall that? Same thing with the Star Peninsula when people are pitching. Like, you got to hit that hook. And so it's, long story short, I think it's interesting.
From the college standpoint, it's always different. Yeah, I mean, each school is different, and I suppose that with each graduating class, they're that additional thing, other than just being really bright and having whatever curriculum. They have whatever. Is it community involvement? Is it whatever the volunteering? I don't know, but they all have something to add to that, and it's interesting from a college application standpoint, because you just don't know what that thing is that they're looking for that particular year.
No.
Chris, you are one who is a bridge between kind of government and kind of the business community. What is that bridge like? What is, because someone like me who doesn't understand kind of the government space, how do you articulate what that is so that the novice or even just like the newborn in that space like I am, like what is the government world like? What how would you define that for what you do?
Sure. So one thing that I've been doing for quite some time now is sort of keeping one foot in government and public policy and the other foot in business and entrepreneurship. And that's, I don't know, kind of a thing I've been doing almost my whole life, because I've always been involved in and really interested in politics. I would say more so today, more policy than politics. I don't like the nastiness in politics. It's an unfortunate part of just how things go today. It's just gotten worse and worse. Although, I mean, Hamilton and Burr were pretty bad too, but it's almost gotten to that point again. And so for me, I really enjoy roles like the lobbying role I have and the government relations role I have at the Peninsula Chamber of Commerce, because I can work on policy that affects people and not have to be so mired into the politics of it. So to kind of get back and answer your question, remember how earlier I talked about perceived barriers to entry for people that might have an idea for business? Well, it's the same thing with government. There's a perceived barrier to entry there. So if you talk about, oh, I work in the General Assembly, or I'm there during session, I do some lobbying. For most people that have never been exposed to it, they think, oh, wow, that's government. That's a whole different animal. They don't know much about it, and they would never know how to get started in it. I had the inroads into it just because I was involved previously in partisan politics before I kind of took this chamber role on. And the thing is, we're the chamber for Hampton and Newport News and York County. And even though they've got their own chamber, which I was a volunteer president of that as well here in the county. But we're a chamber that serves a very diverse community. You've got to be friends with everybody, because the challenges that are facing business today, small businesses, the mom and pops, the family businesses that are putting food on the table for their kids with these businesses, or sending their kids to college with these businesses. These are challenges that are not partisan challenges. We've got a lot of stuff going on, and people sometimes don't realize how much policy truly affects your day-to-day life, which is why it blows me away when I hear people say, oh, I don't vote, or I didn't vote in that election. And they say that doesn't affect me. And I'm like, are you kidding me? What politicians do, the decisions that they make, what gets voted in and what becomes law affects every aspect of our life. And so that's why for me, I don't discredit someone for not literally getting into the muck of politics. But to me, to not even vote, I just don't even understand that, because it does affect all of us. So for me, yeah, you could say I build a bridge between public policy and business, but they are completely intertwined with each other, sometimes to the detriment of both. So anyway, in thinking about the chamber, think about some of the things that are happening today. We've got shortages in affordable housing. They would call it workforce housing. Some people call it attainable housing. But you've got jobs here. We've got the shipyard in Newport News that's going to be hiring thousands of people. Where are they all going to live? We've got issues like access to healthcare, access to childcare for those who need it, which are preventing workforce participation, especially coming out and recovering from COVID. And these are things that typically, just from a political perspective, may have aligned more on one side, that now the other side is saying, well, wait a minute, these are things that affect all of us. So that's one thing that I find pretty, I think, uplifting about my role coming in. There's really only a couple of super partisan issues around business environment that the chamber sometimes has to step in on. And usually that does end up being a little bit more partisan, and that is right to work here in Virginia. But I'm thankful that at least for this session, the governor-elect, Governor Spanberger, has taken that one off the table. So we don't have to worry about that. And I can still be friends with everybody. Yeah, so that she said if repeal came to her desk, she would veto it. And she said it in no uncertain terms at the unveiling of the Virginia Chamber's blueprint. So I thought that was pretty good. And I'm really looking forward to working on some of these really critical issues with Republicans and Democrats together up in the General Assembly, which, as you know, session starts next Wednesday. So it's coming right up.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that just in the sense of adding some color. How chaotic and crazy General Assembly is. I mean, how many how many pieces of legislation is being reviewed? I mean, and it's just, and the amount of time.
Do you
that
know
is
the answer
even,
to that? Do you know how many it is?
I do not. I know
Take a wild guess.
well, it's a lot. It's more. That's what I'm saying. Like, and then how much time is spent on each piece? I mean, it's just like almost a fraction of a second is spent with each piece, and so that's where people like you are important, because the only seconds that a politician or an elected official may even have to make a judgment on that would be the 2 seconds or 10 seconds that you can grab in the hallway and say, hey, this is why this is important. That may be the one thing that sticks in their mind as they are trying to make a decision.
Yeah, you actually hit on something very insightful there, Tim. So when session is going, of course, it's convenient because all of the legislators, we've got 100 people in the House, we've got 40 people in the Senate, and they're all in the GAB at the same time. That's the General Assembly building, the beautiful brand new GAB that they've just finished a couple years ago. So everybody's there all at once, and you can catch people. But the thing is, it is so crazy. So you've got legislators running around, different committee meetings happening. This legislator's on 3 different committees, so they've got to be in this one for 5 minutes, and then they give their colleague next to them a proxy vote on the next thing that's coming up while they go run to the next committee meeting. People are passing each other, and sometimes you see some high fives in the hallways, and sometimes you see some side eyes, some dirty looks. Just kidding. But it is running crazy. And to get back to the number of bills, it is actually in the neighborhood of thousands. So it can be 2,000 or 3,000 different bills that get introduced. And every other year, the legislature either has an 8-week session or a 6-week session. So, we operate on a biennium. And so it's 2 years. This year is the first year of this biennium with our new governor, our new House that just got elected. So this will be a long session, an 8-week session. I say long, that's a really short session for that many bills. Then next year in 27, it's going to be a 6-week, but just as many bills, if you can believe it. But you have to keep in mind, it has to compress because they got to go through one side. They got to go through the House. Then they got to cross over midway, and then everything from the House goes to the Senate, and everything from the Senate goes to the House. So it's not like 3,000 bills in 8 weeks. It's really more like 3,000 bills in 4 weeks, which is why the committee meetings are so important, which is why, I guess, consensus building ahead of time. That's why you see the different parties have their caucuses. A lot of times what happens with an issue is the party leadership has already decided what they're going to do on a particular issue. So when they're in their caucus meetings, which usually happen right before they go onto the Senate or the House floor, they're going down the list of bills, and whoever's leading that caucus is going to say, we're going to vote yes on this, we're going to vote no on this, we're going to yes, no, no. And a lot of it's just because the leaders say. And that's one thing I don't like about politics, but it almost has to be that way because there's just so much. Put yourself in the shoes of an elected official. Let's just say one of these 14 new House members that just came in, most of them actually never held elected office before, and they're coming into this. Imagine that. Just even learn how to use the voting machine and press the button or turn the microphone on, right? And they suddenly got to be a subject matter expert on like thousands of different issues. So I get to that because I wanted to stress the importance of the lobbying corps in the General Assembly. So lobbyist is one of those words that typically, unless you know something a little bit about it, typically has one of those negative connotations. I hate to say it. They're necessary. They actually very much are. But we're not talking about lobbyists that are trying to lobby in the way that, telling you that 4 and 5 doctors prefer Parliament cigarettes, right? Not that kind of lobbying. I'm talking about subjects that are important that legislators just generally don't have a whole lot of knowledge on. And they do rely on the lobbying corps to teach them what is your angle, what are the possible consequences of this vote or that vote. And of course, you have opposing viewpoints, but it's important that legislators hear those opposing viewpoints and then make up their own mind. And so that's where, for me, that's the part of like the leadership's grip on their caucuses that I don't like as much, because it prevents you from being independent minded in many cases. And I think that that's part of politics that I don't really like that much. But yeah, if you talk to the lobbying corps in the General Assembly, we all know each other. We all work on things together. Sometimes we find ourselves on opposite sides of certain issues, but then we'll be working together on something else. And I got to say, it is a lot of fun. It is chaos. It's ridiculous, but it is a lot of fun to be there and to be where everything's happening and to have a front row seat and a hand in what happens with it. It's a lot of fun.
Well, the thing that's interesting to me is how unique Virginia is in some senses in terms of you have Northern Virginia, which is almost on its own. And then you have urban places such as Hampton Roads or Richmond, but then you have like out west where it is very, very rural. And so how do you educate all of these people across the
Right.
entire state? Because problems in Northern Virginia are things that in Bristol or Hiccup Place, Blacksburg or Harrisonburg, they couldn't care less about those things. So it's just, how does that work? And that goes both ways.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have an answer for you on that. How do we overcome that? The Sorensen Institute for Political Leadership out of UVA has a fantastic program. I actually just went through a year-long cohort with them in 2025. 9 different sessions that are typically 3 or 4 days on the road. We go to a particular region of the Commonwealth. We learn about their local economy. We learn about what their challenges are, what their strengths are, how they contribute to the economy as a whole, what are their needs in that particular area. We get to meet the elected officials, local and state, that are there, talk to the economic developers, the chamber people, right? The folks that make everything happen. We went to Northern Virginia. We went to Richmond. We went to Harrisonburg. We went to Bristol. We went to Danville. We went here in Hampton Roads in the historic Triangle and down on the south side. So the cool thing is that the way Sorensen sets that up, and I'm gonna circle back on your question in a more general way, but this just popped into my head. The thing I love about it is that they'll have about 30 or so people in this cohort that are leaders in their own right in a particular sector or in a particular region. They balance it out politically. So we were about half more liberal and about half more conservative. I would say half Republican, half Democrat, but that's not really the case anymore because we're about a third Republican, a third independent, and a third Democrat. And with a ground rule, a set of ground rules of understanding of how we're going to conduct ourselves during our conversations and how we can come to at least find some common values among us and then work our way up to the tactics that we use to implement the things that are important to us, right? So can we find common values first? And then if we can do that, can we find strategies that might work? And if we can do that, can we find tactics that might work that we can all agree on? And if the tactics we can't agree on, then we go back down to strategy or we go back down to the values, right? So we're learning about how to interact with each other in this setting. Of course, you're away for 3 or 4 days with everybody. You're hanging out. We have Friday night caucus where we go out. We have some fun together. And I got to tell you, the people that are in this cohort that I've been with for the past year are my brothers and sisters, regardless of party politics or anything like that. We have each other's back. We literally love each other. We consider each other family. We've been to each other's houses. And so why do I bring that up? It's because what the Sorensen program does for people who are in that space, I think is something that needs to be more broadly applied. So the director of the Institute, Larry, said that 20% of the General Assembly has been through the Sorensen program. And what I said at my graduation speech in December was, I think that number's too low. I think it needs to be 100% because if all the legislators in the Senate and the House had been through what we've just been through, not only would there be more civil discourse, not only would it be less likely that they'd be personally attacking each other and each other's families during elections, and not only would we come to maybe some consensus on policy issues, but things would run more smoothly too. So my thing is like not 20%, let's get 100%. So where does that leave us? Well, we got to understand each other's regions, each other's challenges. You'll be amazed to hear about some of the people that are up in Northern Virginia, understanding the challenges of a place like Bristol, or the communication, between everybody just is able to be improved so much because you have a general understanding. We got to do data centers, right? We got to see all sides of every issue. So how can we get that more in the General Assembly and with policymakers? I think just physically go there. And one thing that we are good at in Virginia is we do have friendships across the aisle. They call it the Virginia way. And I would hate to see that go away. But even when you have to go to war in the committee room, that you can still go out and have lunch or have a beer afterwards and you're still friendly. And I do see a lot of that at the General Assembly. So that is
That's
really
good.
encouraging.
Yeah, because I was wondering like how much of this stuff is like wrestling, where
Oh, it happens.
in the public, they're battling each other, but then behind the curtain, it's just because they're just trying to rally the base or whatever the case is. But then behind the curtain, they're just like, hey, what do we got to do to make this happen?
There can be some heated moments, but a lot of times it's not so much like direct confrontation. It's maybe little tricks like, this particular issue is going to get voted on this day, but the chairman of the committee moves it to another day suddenly, even when everybody that was coming to testify that day is standing in the back of the room waiting to go, like little things like that. So you see some of that kind of stuff, but then one side will do it to the other and they kind of rib each other a little bit. But you very rarely see like these direct confrontations like you'll see in Congress, when they're grandstanding in this committee meetings. You don't see too much of that.
What's something that people praise you for that you think is just nonsense?
That's a really good question. Praising me for, I don't know. Why don't you praise me for something and see if I think it's nonsense?
I'm not a liar.
Yeah.
But okay, so let's give it a little context.
Okay.
So you just talked about all of the policy and you being in government affairs from that perspective. You talked about your work with Start Peninsula, emceeing and being a bridge to certain aspects of that. You talk about your work with the chambers and stuff like that. What's something that people will come up to you because on a surface level they think is one thing, like, oh, rah, this is great, Chris. But then you in the back of your mind, you're like, that's not the thing that you should be focused on. It's actually over here. So something that maybe people are praising you for that isn't really moving the needle. And so they should actually realize that and then shift over here and praise you for that type of thing.
Man, this might go down as the most difficult question asked.
Well, actually, I have an answer for you. Me turning it back was just to give me a little bit more time to respond. But interview technique, right? But no, and I appreciate you putting a little bit more color on that question. But I have an obvious answer to myself. It just wasn't obvious as soon as you asked. But people know that I'm involved in a lot of things, and I am. I mean, my goodness gracious, when I sent you guys the bullets, okay, here's what I'm working on right now, it kind of amazed me. I'm like, this is a long email. How do I even handle all this? So people will praise me for, wow, you were involved in so much, and how you must just be really great at balancing it all. Because I mean, we got a lot going on with our family too, and we've had my wife's grandmother come to live with us, and we're building an addition on the house. We just got 2 new puppies for Christmas. Yay, puppies! Tim, I'm gonna have to send you and Terry the picture because Terry's gonna melt when she sees these pups. But anyway, So what I think is complete BS is that I'm so great at balancing. I guess you have to be to a degree. I've always been interested in a lot of different things. And so sometimes, the whole squirrel thing, that happens for me quite a bit. And so I'll go in a direction, but I'll keep doing this over here and I'll keep doing that. Again, I'm interested in a lot of things and I love tying a bunch of different things together. So where the praise might be a little bit like that's BS is that I'm such a great balancer. I'm really not. Sometimes I get way out of balance in life. And so it's a double-edged sword for me where I will take on just so much because I want to help. I'm interested. I don't want to sit on the sidelines for something, but then I dilute myself to the point where maybe I'm not as good of service to something maybe I was doing before because now I have this other thing going on. Case in point, we founded Logentic this past year. And by the way, a project that I am so super proud of for those who are listening and don't know what it is. It's an AI startup that we founded in April. Myself, Mr. Charlie O'Brien from CoLab, who I know has been a guest of yours actually a year ago this week, right? Because that was at CES.
From CES.
Yeah, that's right. Live from CES in Las Vegas, which, by the way, you didn't even know that I was there with them on that trip because we hadn't announced it yet. But Charlie and then Luke Scrivenich, who is like the top talent coming out of ODU. That guy is an operations master. I mean, at age 23. And so we formed this thing together. I was always interested in AI. I employed it in my businesses and in my life as soon as it started getting really big with ChatGPT. And I remember, Tim, you were part of this, the Hampton Roads Regional Talent Attraction and Retention initiative that was put together by the Workforce Council and by the Executive Roundtable, and we were kind of all a part of that. And that's where I met Charlie. And his just ability to come in and apply AI to situations and save our committee weeks of work and do it in like 30 seconds really captured my attention. So I wanted what he was doing in Orca Strategies in my company. So I wasn't trying to cherry pick him from Collab, but I just asked him, do you do any contract work on the side? Could we possibly do something together? We met. And when I heard his ideas about agentic orchestration and what could be possible with that, I said, let's do something together. He had always wanted to start his own company. So I said, I want to give you that opportunity. I want to be on board with this. I like you. He introduced me to Luke. I love Luke, maybe even more. I'm just kidding, Charlie, because I know he's watching, or I think he is. But and by the way, I love Luke. I mean, we at our first meeting, we talked about Plato and Aristotle, and we talked about a really awesome, deep things. I said, this triumvirate is going to be great. So why do I tie that into the question that you asked me, Zach, is because that's like, I didn't go into the year planning to do a high-tech, high-growth startup in addition to everything else I was doing, but I could not resist the opportunity. So I put almost everything else business-wise on hold, went head forward into Legentic. We kind of had our public launch back in the fall, but we'd already been working on it for 6 months. And we got a lot of, thanks in large part to you guys too, for kind of blasting our stuff out. We got a lot of positive reception from the community around here. And I got to tell you, it was amazing. But here's what happened. As things started progressing and the platform was getting built, and I was in the position of like the default or de facto CEO, even with everything else I had going on, I wasn't able to operate at the speed that those guys needed me to. So I had to kind of remove myself from that. And we had a talk back in November. They shouldn't have to wait, 24 hours for a response from me on something that they need right now. So I said, guys, let's reorganize, let's restructure a little bit. I'm going to step out of the operator role, and I'm going to focus more on the policy stuff, the chamber stuff, the things that I love to do in government, and bridge that with the entrepreneurship stuff. And then I'm going to let you guys fly. All right. Your decisions. You're the operators. I'm going to become a strategic advisor to the company. I sold them back a good portion of my equity because we were all in a third. And I still have a significant portion of equity, but I'm an advisor now. And I said, guys, run and fly. Best decision. So things like that are hard for me to let go of, but best decision because these guys are talented. They are smart. They work quickly. And the Legentic system, by the way, is online, and we're engaging with alpha users right now. I can't wait for them. I'm not going to steal their thunder, but we're going to blow it up publicly, and wait till you see what the platform can do. It is really special. So anyway, yeah. So sometimes I get myself a little bit spread too thin, and I have to make a conscious decision to say, all right, I need to take a step back here and just let people fly.
Yeah. I'm just thinking I think from my point of view, Zach, or our point of view, the answer to your question, I think that it goes back to reps. I think a lot of people look at us and like, man, you guys have the impact that you have. How do you, what did you do? And it's just like, well, we've been doing this for a really long time. So yeah, credit us with all this success, but it's just like, man, this success was 12, 13 years in the making. So yeah, don't give us that much credit.
You didn't go to the gym one day.
Right.
You went. No, I mean, but that's a real thing, right? Like, I mean, I jokingly say this about Tim, but I'm very serious about it. Like, he's run every day for 10 plus years, right? There is amazing. A ton of freaking reps in there. And the same thing for this show to be at episode 292 is a ton of reps. But again, you didn't go to the gym one day. You didn't get to where you didn't want to in one day. You cannot anticipate or expect that you're going to get to where you want to by doing that one thing one time. The same thing goes for marketing. When someone's like, well, I did email that person. They didn't respond back to me. It's the same thing. So shout out to the reps, man, Mr. Jason Calacanis, for, if he didn't introduce us to that concept, definitely mentioned it during his 100th episode, which was 192 episodes ago of the Fervent Four Show. Pretty wild to even think about.
Yeah. Well, the crazy thing for me was just realizing today, it's like, man, this is the first time we had Chris on the show. So we're still having people on the show for the very first time.
Well, that's because we were looking for something to praise him for, and it took so long for us to articulate what that would be.
Thank you. And it's quite an honor. Hey, but 292, I got to tell you, I love the range of guests that you guys have brought on here, and the fact that you brought Jason Calacanis on. I mean, I got to meet him, and technically I could still be in direct contact with him. I just haven't messaged him in a long time. But Tim, that's because of you. And for you to be able to reach out to this massively successful angel investor and entrepreneur out on the West Coast in the middle of things, who has risen to the top of angel investing. He wrote the book on it, literally, which I've read twice. And to get the chance to have him at an event that I was emceeing, and then to be able to stay in touch. You remember, I mean, he took us all out to dinner afterwards. It happened to have been my wife Melissa's birthday that day. And J. Cal took us all out. There's about 30 of us. We all sang happy birthday, and he bought appetizers and drinks for everybody. A lot of fun. And that was an experience that you made happen, Tim. But to have the wherewithal and the courage to reach out to somebody like that and get them to come out here, those are the kind of conduits that I think that we got to keep building here. You know, and maybe a microcosm of that is some of the stuff that we're doing with other ecosystems around the state. I'd like to see more conduits being built among and between them. So, for instance, I mentioned the Gilliam Center for Entrepreneurship earlier in the call here, and you know, JMU is kind of on an island. It's not an island; it's a valley up in the Shenandoah Valley. And they've got their own burgeoning ecosystem going there. The Gilliam Center is very successful. There's a lot of talent coming out of JMU. But one of the things that I started to do on the board, and then became chair of a new committee that we're calling Venture Out, is to help them literally venture out, get it, venture, and find other things around the Commonwealth that are resources, investors, forums, startup competitions, pitch competitions. And my idea was, I want to build a direct conduit from Harrisonburg to Hampton Roads. We had people applying to the Startup World Cup. They didn't make it in the finals, but we're going to keep pushing on that. And I would love to see these conduits be able to connect more of the ecosystems with each other and share our best practices, share our resources. And I think that Hampton Roads should be and is a leader in that space because of what we built here.
Yeah, I would agree. And we definitely look forward to having more involvement with the Dukes in upcoming activities that we have, for sure.
Yeah.
But the thing is, when we make a quick decision, I'm never afraid to fail. And then once we could dig into it, we're like, oh boy, how are we going to make this thing happen? But we always find a way. It's just heads down.
Startup World Cup, 5 weeks to plan. Yeah, let's do it.
Well,
big success though.
It wasn't 5 weeks though. Are you talking about the original?
Yeah, the first one. Wasn't it about 5 weeks of lead time that we had?
Well, I mean, it was, we had to hustle hard, and it was really, you know, it was the learning curve on our end, just in terms of, we just realized we have to lead this thing. But yeah, but I do laugh and smile to myself every time I think about Zach and I going on stage at Sandler Center, thinking, how the heck are we going to pull this one off?
It was amazing.
Still feel like that. There is video of you going like this, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Well, and I wanted to give thanks to you, Chris, because you bringing Juan Pablo down. I mean, I think that it was really great for him to experience how vibrant the community is down here. And if you had not brought him down, he would not have known. So thank you for that. And I think that he was pretty impressed, and it's good for him to know.
Yeah, Secretary of Commerce, for those who don't know, we're talking about Juan Pablo Segura. It was so awesome to have him come down. And I think that he was blown away beyond expectations. I don't know what his expectations were coming into it. I kind of built it up quite a bit, to say, listen, you got to come, you got to see, be part of this. He had so much fun and loved everything about it, the environment of it. He did a couple of lives afterwards and talked about it. I don't know if you guys saw that, but that's a direct extension of the administration. And so maybe there's another conduit there that we need to really pull on that thread, is how are we working with VIPC? How are we working with VEDP? and how can we better utilize and, coalesce those resources. But yeah, that's the kind of idea there. We need these people who are in government to know exactly what's going on down here. And by the way, even people from outside of this region, every time I go somewhere, I'm like an ambassador for Hampton Roads. I will find some kind of way to plug it. I was at it was a high-level AI summit up in DC back in September, and we had these people, subject matter experts in AI from all over the country, actually all over the world, people from federal government, people from the military, people from all over. I was kind of in a room where I'm like, what am I even doing here? But everybody got a chance to weigh in. We got some microphone time because it's a very interactive type conference. And almost every time I got the microphone, I talked about Hampton Roads so that people understood from all over the place in this space that we've got something happening here. So I'll continue to be an ambassador for that. I love this community. Some people kind of have a philosophy of, I'm just going to live my life. I'll leave you alone. You leave me alone, and we'll do our thing. And I have no disrespect for that whatsoever. That's awesome. I think that there are other people, though, that really believe in the power of community and why it's so important. That's the whole reason of why I moved back here. I mentioned earlier, I did grow up here, but after JMU, I moved away. I went to New York for a couple of years. Unfortunately, during 9/11, like it happened just a few weeks after I got there. So New York was kind of a bummer for a couple of years for me. 9/11 cast a dark shadow over that time. And then I spent 8 years in DC. And as a community guy, and being away from kind of my family and support system and where my roots were, I got to the point where I was like, what am I even doing here in life? And so I moved back, Tim. It was 2010. And the best decision I ever made was to come back to Hampton Roads, because within just a few months, I had started working with the chamber, the Rotary Club, got involved there. I met my wife through the Peninsula Chamber. I met Melissa just a few months after I moved back, started my business just within a few months, and was able to just rock it because I was in my element. And the big difference here, besides just having my family support system here with me, was that I was in a place where I felt like I could be a stakeholder, where I could make a difference. And when I was in New York City or when I was in DC, I didn't feel that way. And so I was missing a big part of what's important to me in my heart, which was that community thing. So that's why I'm such an ambassador for Hampton Roads. Anywhere I go, I talk about it because I truly love it. And again, everything that you guys are doing is just a big part of what makes us really tick as a region. We have our challenges, but I think this is a big thing that we do well.
Well, circle back around to reward those that have been wondering for the last 40 minutes how Chris became my daddy. Is it through Rotary? Chris did invite me to come to a meeting, and that is he was my sponsor in a Rotary, in which, coming back full circle on all this, you meet a lot of people within Rotary, within your club, locally, across the region, across the state, internationally. I mean, it's just so from that unlocks a lot of doors from that standpoint. So that is how Chris is my Rotary daddy.
Yeah, and that means I'm Gary Plagg's Rotary granddaddy, right?
And you're a great granddaddy as well. That lineage continues.
Really liked it when I didn't know the answer to that. I could have taken it so many other places, but I digress. Heavy sigh. What's something that people could so when people are thinking about like big initiatives, what should they stop doing so that those big initiatives can start to move forward?
Easy answer. Stop doing it by yourself, because people may have big ideas, and I'm guilty of this sometimes, because I might have a big idea or whatever it is, where you feel like you're the only person that can carry this forward, or you're the best person to carry it forward. And this is something I've struggled with as a leader at times in my life, where maybe I think I'm the most qualified or I'm the best to do this. And the truth is, if you just hand it over to other people and empower them, if you're in a position of leadership and maybe you're working on an initiative, maybe even something that you thought of, stop doing it yourself. Bring other people on board, get them involved with you, and then let them shine. As a leader, you've got to give people the opportunity to show you what they bring to the table. And that's how you not only lead, but you become a leader of leaders. You develop other leaders. And so I can still be guilty of it to this day if I don't consciously make a decision to stop doing that. So For anybody that thinks that they have to do it on their own, I even see people that sit there and complain that they've got no help. And I'm thinking to myself, it's because you don't engage it. You've got to bring people on. You got to cast a vision. So people sometimes struggle with that. You've got to be vocal about it. You've got to cast a vision. Don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to get other people involved. Tim, you mentioned inviting. Well, I could have chosen not to say anything to you about Rotary. Think about that. And at the time, I think, wasn't I president of the club? Because you were coming through the accelerator at Star Peninsula too, and I was teaching the sales course. Yeah. And I remember at the end of it, we'd gotten to know each other a little bit. I was like, man, I got to invite Tim to Rotary. I think he'd be perfect and he would love it. And so you did. You came, and then you got really involved. You became club president yourself twice now, by the way. You've invited Terry, your wife. She became president. You invited Gary Plagg. He became president. And so what if I never opened my mouth? What if I had never said, come join, come be a part of this? It's great. Now, you could have said, no, I don't have time for that, or no, Rotaries, whatever. I heard it's a, whatever. But you didn't. You said, let me come check that out. If I'd never opened my mouth, you would have never been there. And then look at all the permeations of what that impact has been in other people's lives if I hadn't opened my mouth. And by the way, I can't take full credit for that because somebody opened their mouth to me about it. And that was the illustrious Tu Ritter, who told me about Rotary. So, and that's been one of the best things that ever happened in my life. I mean, within just a few weeks of joining the club, I got to go to Africa, on a 3H grant, building bridges in Zambia, just incredibly enriching experiences and opportunities to give back. So yeah, Zach, it's about stop doing it by yourself, cast a vision and bring others on board. But then let them do it. Let them show you what they've got.
If you had to, man, this has been a super quick hour. Quickly, if you could take out your crystal ball and predict Fort Monroe, what that will look like in the future. I mean, that is such a gem of a piece of land that, man, that would be super cool just to see. What's the future of Fort Monroe?
So the reason Tim brings up Fort Monroe is because I just got appointed to the, it was back in September, but just got appointed by the Governor Youngkin, to be on the Board of Trustees for the Fort Monroe Authority. What an honor, by the way, not just to be able to serve on a public board like that, but to be a part of something so special. I mean, it is steeped in history. It's the combination of the history, but also the really unique landscape. If anybody's listening and you're in this area and you have not been to Fort Monroe, go out there. Just go be there. It's incredible. This little island of land, if you go to your Maps app on your phone right now and zoom in on the lower peninsula, right there where the HRBT is, you'll see this little, almost like a little island there. That's Fort Monroe. And if you zoom in a little further, you'll actually see a man-made moat that's been there for hundreds of years. Fort Monroe is an incredible gem in our community where there's been rich history that's happened there. It's not just been an Army base. That's what it's mostly known for. I mean, through the Civil War, it's incredible. And even though this is not a happy topic, but it's the original landing of the first Africans that came as enslaved persons from Angola, landed in 1619 at Fort Monroe. And now there's a monument being built at what they think is the exact spot of where that happened. But then conversely, and this is the full circle part of the story, that many of those enslaved people during the Civil War were able to come to freedom. That's why they call it Freedom's Fort, at Fort Monroe during that period. And so some of the first ones was called the Contraband Decision that allowed them to come and be at Fort Monroe and get their freedom. And so I think that's an incredible part, but that's just one aspect of it. The historical buildings that are out there, just the sweeping views of the bay. And literal Hampton Roads, that's right there. The water is just immense. At the lighthouse at Old Point Comfort, we had the honor to live right next to the lighthouse for 4 years in that little white cottage right there at the end of Fenwick Road, what do they call the General's Row. That's where I got my interest in Fort Monroe, other than just kind of going there when I was a kid, when my uncle, who was a colonel in the Army, would come into town. We'd go there for the Officers Club. But what they've done out there already is spectacular. And what is going to happen, Tim, they have hired a landscape architecture firm to create a landscape action plan that will blow your socks off. The firms that competed for this were some of the biggest firms in the world that have done some of the most amazing projects. Presidio, like those types of level of things are coming to Fort Monroe. major infrastructure projects that are going on right there to bring all of the infrastructure up to modern standards. And so what do I envision it being? I envision it being something so special that people are going to want to come from all over the country, all over the world, just to see it. I mean, they had 26,000 people at their 4th of July fireworks. Really amazing. So yeah, keep your eye on Fort Monroe. That's going to be a fun one.
In a sentence, you're someone who does what?
Loves people. I know that's maybe too short of a sentence for you, but that's who I am at my core.
It's not a sentence. I mean, I said in a sentence.
Yeah, I'm someone who loves people. That is who I am. I got a big heart. I love humanity. That's why it's so hard for me to be like, staunchly on this side, and everybody else, you're all the other side, right? I mean, trust me, I've got my political beliefs and affiliations, but I see people as people. And that's why I can't stand racial disharmony. I actively fight against that. I think we need to come together. So I'm somebody who loves people and loves to serve people. That's who I am at my core. And that is the main thing that motivates me for everything else I do. Otherwise, I could just be one of those people that says, I'm going to do my thing, leave me alone, I'll leave you alone. That's just not in my nature. I just love people too much.
I like it. What, Chris, you've lived in this area most of your life, as we've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we've been trying to do is like identify a food of the region so we can brand ourselves as like, you have to come to Hampton Roads for X. What is the food? What is the beverage of the region that we need to brand to the rest of the world?
Buffalo chicken.
See what I'm saying? We got to come up with our thing. Is it? So,
yeah, I say that somewhat jokingly. I can't remember if I've ever made you my recipe when you've been over here, Tim, but I'll have to, both of you guys. So I do have a really cool buffalo chicken that I do on the grill. Been perfecting it for years. I don't know. What is it around here? Would it necessarily have to be something seafood oriented? I don't know. There's a lot of those things that could be good here that are kind of already claimed by other areas. We've got some really good hidden gems here. I'm a huge fan of Pierce's Pit Cook Barbecue. I don't know, Tim. I'd have to get back to you on that one because I'm not really sure. But maybe we just put buffalo chicken in as a placeholder because there's buffalo wings from Buffalo, New York, but buffalo chicken, kind of like the boneless chicken. Yeah, I think maybe that could be it. I don't know.
Well, the debate will continue on for a few more episodes, Zach. We can't come up with a decisive answer.
Have you asked AI?
Robots don't taste. They don't know.
I'd be curious what they say.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd have to prompt it a certain way. But you're right. We shall, by the next time we have this conversation with our next guest, we will have seen what the robots have said. But until that time, Chris Davidson, we appreciate you. You're someone who loves people, as you eloquently said, and you think that buffalo chicken is the food of the 757. Continued success. And it was great to hear that story that I do not recall about being on stage at Start Peninsula in November or December of 2012, bringing up a waitress to pitch their idea. I don't recall that, but maybe there's video of it somewhere so I can go back through memory lane. Any final thoughts, Mr. Ryan?
No, as Chris loves people, we love Chris. Thank you for your time today, Chris. We'll let's do it again before another 7 years passes. Maybe next year.
The feeling is mutual. Me to both of you guys. Truly, I love both of you, and I just really treasure our friendship. And even though Zach, it took me a few years to understand your sense of humor, but I get you now. No, truly, the love goes both ways, and really appreciate all of you guys.